Hey, it's Mark Bergen from the Browns Nation Station. The Browns season might be over, but the listeners of the Browns Nation Station can show their Browns Nation pride by going to brownsnationswag.com. The site has all the latest and best fan gear to represent your team. Again, that's brownsnationswag.com. And if you're watching the Browns Nation Station on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show so you never miss another episode. All right, cue the music. It's time to start the show. Welcome to the Browns Nation Station. I'm your host, Mark Bergen, joined by my fellow BrownsNation.com writers, Pat Opperman and Wendy Oliveros. We're recording this after the Browns' 22-17 loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. And I want to get right into it. That decision by Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, with a backup quarterback to go for it on 4th and inches. It's really a shame that the Browns couldn't take advantage with Patrick Mahomes being out with a concussion. And that was my first reaction to today's loss. But I wanted to get both of yours. And Pat, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, offhand, of course, that's a disappointing thing. You see Mahomes go down and you're like, Chad, Henne, we can take this guy. And especially when he threw that interception, that's what we expected every pass. But, there's a reason that Andy Reid is Andy Reid. This is the third straight year that Kansas City is going to host the AFC Championship. There's only one NFC team that ever hosted 3 state championships, and that was the Philadelphia Eagles under Andy Reid. So this guy prepares for everything. I'm sure he had even the water boy ready to go in if he needed to help out because just what he is. I mean, it was just a phenomenal effort by Kansas City to cover up for their lost quarterback. Cleveland tried. We were pretty banged up too. Myles Garrett, what an effort he put in. I mean, you could tell he was in pain the entire second half, and just fell a little bit short. On one hand, he said, well, he fell short, but on the other hand, we're a couple of weeks deeper than we expected to be at the beginning of the season. So kudos to the guys.
Pat, you're way more diplomatic than me. That game could have been won. Oh my gosh. And why couldn't they stop the run? The whole game, I was so bothered by why they couldn't stop the run. I know there's Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. We know about that. But even when Mahomes was in and was gimpy, they were running the ball easily on the Browns.
Yeah, the last time Chad Henne had a passing conversion on 4th down was in 2013, week 17. I'll be honest, I didn't know he was still in the league. And they might be playing Hail to the Victors in the Chiefs locker room after this one. I cannot believe the Chiefs were able to hang on and win. And I think then you get into the decision of should Stefanski have punted the ball on the Browns' last possession. And instead of going for it on fourth down, it would have been maybe a 4th and 8, 4th and 9. And we can get into some of the decision-making. He didn't have the luxury of timeouts because they contested the Tyreek Hill catch, which was upheld in the 4th quarter. But that was a question I had. And I'll say this, if Mahomes had still been in the game and he hadn't been knocked out with the concussion, I think that Stefanski and the Browns definitely go for it on 4th down, just considering the Chiefs, up until Mahomes had gotten knocked out, had scored on 5 of their 6 drives, and the only drive the Chiefs didn't score on when Mahomes was in the game was a missed 33-yard field goal. I know we were talking in the group chat quite a bit during the game, but the Chiefs offense at times seemed to do whatever they wanted against this Browns defense. And there were times when Mahomes was in the game, it looked like a 7-on-7 drill just with how he was able to execute with all the different weapons that the Chiefs have offensively.
I think you're absolutely correct. I think it was a no-brainer. If Mahomes was in there, they would have to go for it on 4th down because you can't expect to stop Mahomes. But when it was Henne, even without the timeouts, the last pass he threw was just that lame duck, wounded duck into the end zone. So you had to kind of hope for one more of those. And so I think that was a no-brainer. And what Wendy was saying before, too, about the running, we couldn't stop the run. Look at that Kansas City running attack. That is exactly what I think the Cleveland Browns can do. Andy Reid, no matter who his running back has been, he's had a pretty good running attack. And but he uses wide receivers, he uses his quarterback, he uses everybody. And we've seen the Browns occasionally run Landry, run Higgins, run whoever. And it works. They even ran a tight end once, and it works every time. And it helps distract from the fact that you have the 2 best running backs in the world back there. It just makes their job easier because you don't know. You get that split-second hesitation, who's got the ball. And by the time you realize who has the ball, they're running past you. And Yeah, it's a tough offense to defend, no doubt about it. But did what we could do. But yeah, that timeout, you're right. The timeout, there's no way they don't go for it on fourth down. Rather, fourth down. They don't go for it on fourth down if Mahomes is in the game. Henne did change the decision making on a couple of times, I thought, during the last quarter there.
And true to Andy Reid, though, I thought from the beginning he called a great game because he had a good mix of pass and rush, and it just didn't look like the Browns, like you were saying, Pat, they didn't know what was coming. The first, couple drives, they just did not know. And I kept waiting for the adjustment, but I mean, Andy Reid is who he is. He called a good game with Mahomes and Henne.
I agree in the sense that if you can't get to Mahomes with 4 pass rushers, he is going to chew you alive, because if you blitz him, he knows where the blitz is coming from and he knows where he likes his matchups. Travis Kelce had a great game for the Chiefs, but I want to go make sure we really harp on that Henne scramble on the 3rd and 14 for 13 yards to set up that 4th and inches play. His longest rush since 2013, and he put his soul into that run going head first. I'll be honest, I thought he got the first down on the scramble, so then they marked him short, and I know they showed it on the replay. I was honestly pretty surprised because initially I'm like, oh man, with the scramble, it's going to be over. But I thought it was incredible where on the 4th and inches play, even the announcers were saying the Chiefs aren't going to snap the ball here. Even Romo, who is notorious for calling plays before they happen, that's what makes him such a great announcer on the CBS broadcast. Even he was saying from the Browns defensive standpoint, don't jump, because I can't believe that the Chiefs actually ran a play there. It was an unbelievable decision, and that aggressiveness helped lead the Browns to a victory. It looks like we lost Pat. I'm going to go ahead and pause it, Wendy, really quickly. I'll go ahead and pause here. So I was just detailing that scramble and then leading to the 4th down play. I was shocked that the Chiefs went ahead and snapped it, just because it seemed like the consensus on the field, the way that the Chiefs players lined up, even the announcers were saying, hey, the Chiefs are just going to try to draw the Browns offside to try to end this game. They're not actually going to run a play. And then they went ahead and did, and they run the rollout with Henne, and he was able to complete the pass to Tyreek Hill to convert the first down and end the game for the Chiefs.
Nobody saw that coming. Nobody did. It was unbelievable. I can't fault the Browns on that one too much, because they certainly disguised it.
And I think what would have been like quintessential Browns would have been jumping off sides or an encroachment, and they held up, and the Chiefs were just the aggressors, and they made a play. And sometimes you got to tip your cap. The other play that we have to mention was near the end of the first half. Pat, go ahead and hop in. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that play, not to date myself, I know I'm much older than you guys, but that reminded me of the famous Dan Marino spike or non-spike playing against the Jets. And he ran up to the line and he made the motion, spike. They snapped the ball and he threw it to the corner of the end zone for the touchdown that beat the Jets many, many years ago. And it reminded me of that. They sat there. The body language was, okay, we're just going to try to draw you offside. And it was a great deception play. It was just, fantastic. And yeah, you do have to tip your hat to them to do that.
Great perspective there, Pat. This is why you're a beloved member here on the Browns Nation station. It's a great comparison. The other play we have to get to, though, that was a real momentum changer, was right before the end of the first half. Daniel Sorensen forcing the fumble on Rashard Higgins, who was stretched out to try to score the touchdown to cut the Chiefs' lead in the Browns deficit. And I don't fault Higgins for trying to score. I definitely think it was a fumble, but I know it's easy to see on replay when they can slow it down, but clearly Sorensen led with his head down to where I think he should have been called for targeting. And it's really a shame that the refs can't review a penalty in that circumstance. I think he definitely fumbled before the goal line. I think that was a good call. But if the Browns get a targeting penalty, they get it on the 1 yard line and they probably punch it in, score a touchdown, cut the deficit. It would have been like 16-10 at that point. Maybe the Chiefs don't get a field goal before the end of the first half. I thought that play was absolutely huge, and it did not go in the Browns' favor. It was really a shame.
There was a couple. Go ahead, Wendy.
I feared that was going to be a game changer. I really did, because it was just, I don't know. I don't know that rule, and I didn't have time to really Google it, but I just feared that was going to take all the, all the excitement out. To the Browns' credit, they did try to put it past them, but it's just like, oh, come on. It's the Browns. Does everything always have to go wrong?
Well, it did look like everything was working against the Browns during the game. That play was just devastating at the time. I can't stand that rule. I don't understand that. Fumble through the end zone. Okay, just bring it back to where you fumbled it. So obviously, you can't recover. Even make it that you can't recover it in the end zone if you want to. Make the play dead at that point. If you want to pen back to the 5-yard line or the 2-yard.
Wendy, can you hear Pat? I think we might have lost Pat again.
I couldn't. I heard him for a little bit. Oh.
And in the second half, Baker. Sorry.
Pat, I think
Pat, I think
your connection cut out a little bit again there, but just describing that again, that play with Sorensen again. My takeaway was that the refs made a good decision in that. The rules are what the rules are. Once Higgins actually fumbles the ball and it goes out of bounds, I was hoping Njoku might be able to fall on it, and the Browns would have scored if Njoku would have fell on the ball in the end zone, but it rolls out. It's clearly a fumble. They made the right decision there, but if his head is dipped down, either targeting or spearing is something that the league has tried to avoid now for the last 5 to 10 years, and there's a reason why there's targeting rules in place. If the referees throw the flag on that, and I know it's really easy once you slow it down and you can see it frame by frame on a replay, but it's really a shame. And I think that the league, look, if they can review pass interference penalties, the Sean Payton rule from the NFC Championship game a few years ago between the Saints and the Rams, why couldn't you do the same thing with targeting? And it went against the Browns. I know goes against your team, but that was such a pivotal play. And if he doesn't spear, if he doesn't target on that play, does he force the fumble? You have to ask yourself that question on that play. It was that pivotal.
It makes me wonder if they're going to revisit that, if it's going to be like a reaction like Sean Payton, because they should be able to look at that. You're right. They look at everything else, it feels like. And that felt like something, if with the taking the time, that could have gone a totally different direction.
I lost you.
I'm going to go ahead and pause this again. It's just, we seem to be having connection issues. All right. So take 3, and appreciate the listeners staying with us. But Pat, seem to get your connection. You've gotten your connection issues fixed, but we were just talking about that Sorensen play on that hit with Hollywood Higgins near the goal line and how that completely changed the momentum of the game. I was just curious about your thoughts about that play.
That play, it was definitely a penalty, looking at it a second time. There's no doubt he led with his head. He made head-to-head contact with the receiver, all that. But whenever I see some of those plays, I'm thinking, how else was he supposed to make that play? You got one receiver diving in one direction. The other guy has to dive to push him out of bounds if he's going to stop the touchdown. And yeah, unfortunately, he should have had his hands out in front maybe a little bit better. He missed him with his hands, and the result was helmet to helmet. If he had his hands up a little bit higher, he would have hit him with his hands, and it would have been a non-issue. May or may not have been a fumble. But yeah, it was one of those things. I was surprised it wasn't called, only because they've called much less. But I always kind of, just like I don't like the penalty, fumbling through the end zone thing, there's also times when head-to-head, it's incidental, and it's almost like we used to have that 5-yard or 15-yard roughing the kicker, Maybe we need to have a 5-yard or 15-yard helmet-to-helmet too. But yeah, it did. It changed the entire complexion of the game for a while, even though the Browns did make a comeback. It was a little bit late, but it is what it is. Like we said with the fumble thing, it's the rule. They didn't call it. You can't review it. It's the way it goes. Bad break for us.
And I think Chiefs fans would probably counter with that play to say, oh, well, Mac Wilson was helmet to helmet on Patrick Mahomes on the concussion. In my opinion, it was more of like a clothesline tackle on the game that Mahomes was concussed. But I think your ardent Chiefs fans would argue that the Browns kind of got the Chiefs back when Mahomes got knocked out of the game.
Well, these things happen. They do work out a little bit. I did not think Mac Wilson was home with the helmet. I thought he was shoulder first, and I thought that was a good tackle and a good play. He was smart enough to let go of the clothesline. The clothesline was a result of the tumbling after the fact. It wasn't like he tackled him around the neck even, but he was smart enough to let go, so there was no question about the ref. Should I call that or not? But things do work out. I mean, we had that play where we did not get the replay flag out on time when the pass was possibly not caught by Kansas City there early in the game. And later on, that fourth down catch by Hooper that kept us alive. He caught that toward the tail of the ball and he drove it into the ground to make the catch. And I was shocked that Andy Reid did not throw a review flag on that either. And we got the next playoff. I don't know that it would have been overturned, but they should have reviewed it. And it had a chance of being overturned. He definitely, the ball didn't move in his hands after that. That could easily have been overturned if the ref felt like it. So these things do work out.
Yeah, down 12 in the fourth quarter, and that diving catch on fourth down, mind you, set up Kareem Hunt's touchdown run, and that saved the season. And honestly, I thought that was a turning point in the game in the sense that if the Browns had won this game, I would have pointed to that play on that fourth down conversion. And it goes to show you why the Browns signed Austin Hooper in the offseason, a guy who's been a Pro Bowl tight end in his career.
I said it on the chat. He earned his money right there, because I mean, that was pretty tight in there. And he made a clutch catch.
I'm going to be honest with you too. A few other plays that really stuck out to me. Carl Joseph's interception that Henne threw in the end zone. I thought Lamar Jackson was going to have the worst interception of the weekend. That was essentially like an arm punt. It was unbelievable. It was a gift. And it's a shame that the Browns couldn't take advantage in the sense that they get the ball back and it's like, all right, Baker Mayfield, here we go. Down 5. Can you lead your team down the field? They can't get much yardage. They get stopped and the Browns decide to punt the ball and then they never get it back. And I can't help but wonder if Stefanski regrets not going for it on the fourth down and trying to be the aggressor like the Chiefs were in this game. And you might be able to argue it. I know hindsight's 2020. We can almost Monday morning quarterback this, but the decision not to be the aggressor in that circumstance might have cost the Browns. And it's, 4th and 9, 4th and 8. I get it. It's the down and distance, but that's where it goes to show you the importance of moving the ball on first and second down. If it's not 9 yards, maybe say if it's 4 yards, if Hunt was able to get more yardage on that swing pass, maybe you do go for it there. But I think that's a question that Stefanski and the Browns are going to be asking themselves all offseason.
Well, I'll tell you, sorry, we talk about the offense on Kansas City today, and keeping us off keel. I thought the other coordinator called a great game was Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator of Kansas City. What really needed to, he brought in everybody. He had safety splitzings. He had a cornerback blitz at one point. He had linebackers coming and going. And whenever Baker needed to go deeper, he brought those safeties in and kind of forced them off the edge. There was a couple of plays where the running back, whether it was Chubb or Hunt, had to pick one or the other. And either way, it was a no-win situation. And Mayfield still doesn't do fantastic when he's under that kind of in-your-face kind of rush. So I thought he called a hell of a game, the defensive coordinator. I also wasn't sure. It almost looked like they were running the ball differently. When they got that interception, the earlier drive when Hunt and Chubb decided to show up and reel off 20-yard, 10-yard runs, it almost seemed like they were hitting the line straight on very hard. And in the next drive, when we had a run, we really wanted to run the clock out and get the touchdown. It almost seemed like every time they got to the line, they were going sideways. And it might have been my imagination. I'm not really sure. But yeah, it was weird. We had one drive where we were able to run over them. And then the next time they just stopped it again like they did the whole first half. It was I have to really look at the film and see what the heck happened there. But very disappointing. I really thought they would just come out again, motivated, driven, and just carry bodies for 10 yards at a clip, and that would be the game.
And the Browns running game really didn't get going until the second half. They only had 18 yards rushing at halftime. So that was one of my key takeaways going into the half, considering the way that it ended after that Higgins play, was the Browns, from a defensive standpoint, they had allowed 4 scores on all the Chiefs for 4 drives in the first half. They had 18 yards of rushing at halftime. And during the regular season, they had averaged something like, I think it was like 148 rushing yards per game in the regular season, and they had 18 at halftime. Now, they finish with 112 yards rushing, so they got it going in the second half, but with 94 rushing yards in the second half. But I don't know if it was just too little too late in their efforts there, but that was one of the big halftime takeaways, that the Browns kind of dug themselves too deep a hole in the first half, because in the first half, Mayfield came to play. David Njoku played, I thought, his best game as a Brown, but I'm like, who else is going to step up and make a play for the Browns? And especially from a defensive standpoint, because for like 3/4 of that game, the Browns defensively, the only guy who had made a play was Adrian Claiborne on that blown up screen pass. And it's just like, all right, by the time Henne comes in the play, the defense has to step up and create a turnover or go 3 and out or get off the field and step up and make a play instead of solely relying upon your offense. I know the Chiefs' offense is really potent, but I thought that the Browns did a good job even hanging this game and giving themselves a shot even towards the very end, because I don't think the defense played very well today.
I think that's charitable. I don't think they played well at all. But I know it's a tall order. I know you've got Mahomes, but where I expected them to really step up was when Mahomes went in the locker room. That's when I thought it would turn. And all the people that are going to criticize Baker, I'm just going to get out in front of the bus here. Yes, he threw an interception. Yes, it wasn't the best, but he played a great game. He had some drops. He had people dropping balls that haven't dropped them this year. And it just seemed like the opposite. Last week, everything went beautifully, and it just felt like everything just started to fall apart from the beginning of this game.
Yeah, there were a few letdowns to say the least. I mean, you saw, Nick Chubb drop those 2 passes in a row on that drive and basically kill that drive. That was very discouraging. And then even Jarvis Landry, twice he pulled up, and Baker was hitting receivers on the run all day. Okay, and both times Landry kind of let up a little bit. One time he stopped, I think, because the cornerback was coming in. I think he felt that he had to stay in an open position, but Mayfield was already throwing the ball, so they missed that one. And we saw Jarvis almost hand the ball to the defensive back toward the end of the game there too. It was really weird that Landry became one of the most unreliable people, and Njoku became one of the most reliable. And Nick, when caught all 5 passes last week and set a career best with yardage, and this week he was butterfingers the whole time. So that was disappointing. Also, the defense, I was really interested to see what Joe Woods came up with today. And in the beginning, you might remember Kelsey's touchdown. The defender fell down. That was Denzel. And I was really happy because I was actually kidding around before the game. Wouldn't it be interesting? The best receiver there is Kelsey. Would you put Denzel Ward on Kelsey the whole game or not? And at first, when I saw that play, I thought that's what he was doing. But then the next series, we come down and you've got Sheldon Richardson covering Kelsey. And thank God that was after Mahomes hurt his foot and the pass came up short because they didn't complete it. And during the course of the game, I saw pretty much everybody. There were linemen, linebackers, safeties, everybody and their mother on there. I guess it was a pure zone. But yeah, whatever it was, it wasn't. It didn't work nearly as effectively as he did last week, obviously, with the containment.
I joked before this game, I wish the Browns could have cloned Denzel Ward. And I know he's coming back from COVID-19 and everything, but I said that knowing all of the different weapons that the Chiefs have, and they didn't even have Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Sammy Watkins. So if those 2 guys would have been healthy for the Chiefs too, 2 more targets that Mahomes had when he was still in this game. I hate to bring this up, but going back to the fumble that Higgins had has some eerie similarities to Ernest Biner's fumble 33 years ago as a Browns fan. So both fumbles happened at the opposing team's 1-yard line. Biner's fumble happened on this same day 33 years ago in 1988, and the Browns lost both games by 5 points. So some eerie similarities between those 2 plays, and yet another Browns heartbreak in the postseason.
Okay, I guess I'll take it. Yeah, it's that's interesting, but yeah, I don't know what to make of it. It's the Browns. They had opportunities. They were they outplayed they outplayed expectations for the whole year. Most people had them no more than 10 wins. A lot of people had them at 9 wins. And then all year long, we kept hearing about they're going to be a one and out, done in the wild card because they're not good enough to beat good teams. And I mean, they hung within 5 points of arguably the best team in the NFL today. And they dismissed, Pittsburgh out of hand last week. So, yeah, I understand that there's still that history of, there's still some history we want to get rid of. The fumbles eerily reminds us of Viner. But I don't think overall, once we recover from this, that we can really be that disappointed that here we are in week 19 talking about Browns football. Yeah, I would have loved to see them play the Bills, but on the other hand, that's two teams that haven't been there in a long time, and it would be hard to figure out. I mean, we would be rooting for the Browns, of course, but the rest of the nation would be debating which team to root for. But at least now we can all decide that the Bills have to beat the Chiefs next week at all costs, and then we'll be happier.
That's right. That's right. And the other thing is, I've said the whole week that this has been a win. This was a bonus game. Nobody expected it. And then everybody expected them to be 10-point or more underdogs. So all I hoped is that they would make it a game. And as typical Browns fashion, they made it a game. They made it with drama. They came out on the losing end, but I think there's so much to be to build from. Yeah, there's some holes and there's some things that need to be fixed, but there's a lot of positives. And hopefully, like when everybody gets a chance to get over mourning the loss, that they take that part in.
My takeaway is this. You had 3 AFC North teams make the postseason this year, and the Browns were the last one, just like everyone predicted. And I say that very jokingly because what this team was able to accomplish this season under Kevin Stefanski, who I'm a broken record here. If he's not NFL Coach of the Year, show me who is, because I will argue with them. I will argue with him because I thought he did a great job this year. There's a lot that you can build on. Going into the offseason, you're going to have to ask yourself some questions. And just off the top of my head, if you're going to pick up Baker Mayfield's 5th-year option on his rookie deal, what you do with OBJ, and then how you improve this defense. Those would be the 3 questions that immediately come to my mind after today's loss. But there's nothing to be ashamed of. And to be in a 1-score game against the defending Super Bowl champions, it says a lot about what the Browns were able to accomplish this season.
And we didn't mention it, but I thought it was a bad sign when Jedrick Wills went out of the game as early as he did as well, because he's done a great job this year protecting Mayfield. He's really done more than, I don't know, that we all expected as a rookie at changing positions.
Yeah, Blake Hance with extended duty today too after Lamb went down. That was, at least everybody knew who he was this time when he came into the game. I'm assuming he introduced himself to Stefanski before the game time, but so they hadn't even met last week. But yeah, there was a few people. And like I said, you also had Miles hurt. You had a few people banged up there during the course of the game. And, they did what they could do. I don't know what else you can say about it.
And we'll see what the Chiefs can do moving forward into the AFC Championship game, hosting the Bills. Each of Kansas City's last 8 wins, going back to the regular season, have been by 6 points or fewer. So they've made it really, really tight and interesting down the stretch. And I thought that once Mahomes went out, and I hope Mahomes is back next week, I would like to see him back in the lineup for the Chiefs. But once he went down, it was like, man, this is the chance. This is the opportunity to knock out the defending Super Bowl champions. And the Browns gave the Chiefs everything that they could in this one.
I mean, interesting statistic for you. The traditionally or historically, when you have a team that wins a lot of 1-score games one year, they tend to lose a lot of games the following year. Pittsburgh was the last example when they had their last good run. They had won most of the games by 1 score, and they came out the following year. Now, granted, Roethlisberger got hurt, so that kind of tainted it. But, of course, they were nowhere near as good the following year all around. I don't know why that happens. But conversely, if you lose a lot of 1-score games, you tend to make a big jump the following year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Kansas City next year. But I'm more interested in what happens with the Browns. I think between the draft, we have some cap space. We have a few people to deal with, but I think they're going to go defense heavy. They're going to fix their defense and get some young and fast and stronger bodies. And, and I think that's it. We may get a little more depth on the line, even though the backup guys did pretty well. And it should be a very interesting year. Cincinnati getting Burrow back next year should be very interesting too. Make it a little tighter, the AFC North. And Pittsburgh should fade. So I really think it's going to be the Browns and Ravens next year fighting for it. And I think the Bengals would be one of those teams you don't want to face if you have to get a win. So should be an interesting year coming up next year. I mean, I'm very excited to see Cleveland. For the first time in a long time, we're all like, wow, Cleveland really has a shot next year. We're going to take the division. And I think that's actually a realistic, not just a tremendous fan wishful thinking type of deal. I think that's actually a realistic expectation that the Browns will go after the title next year.
And the thing I always ignore, the preseason games, I'll actually be excited to see some preseason games. I think that could have helped. New coach, new system, younger players. I mean, I think Stefanski's coach of the year for that reason too. He ran with it. No preseason, COVID. I agree with you, Mark. He's it. If he's not, I don't know who they're giving it to.
Absolutely.
Last three of us. He's got to be coach of the year. I see no other option, to be honest with you. I think Miami blew it. It was going back and forth between Flores and Stefanski most of the season. And I think the last couple of games there with Miami, I think kind of nailed it down for Stefanski.
Absolutely. Pat and Wendy, this is always so much fun. It's been a pleasure speaking with both of you throughout the duration of this season. And Browns fall short in the AFC divisional round against the Chiefs. But again, if you're a Browns fan, you have to be looking up and you have to be pretty happy overall with this season. But I'll go ahead and sign off for all of us here. For Wendy Oliveros and Pat Opperman, I'm Mark Bergen. Thank you for listening to the Browns Nation station. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. Take care. So long, everyone, and we'll see you next time.